Wow, that was some temporal distortion, wasn't it, Abby? 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 Oh no, we misplaced Abby! Help! Tragedy! A disaster! An apocalypse! There, I'm right here. What the hell is wrong with you? Don't ever leave the studio again. What were you thinking? Here's the coffee you sent me to fetch. Milky Way mocha with a splash of Dubai chocolate. Oh, thank you. We're in a temporal distortion, Abby. Did you notice? It's been a month. Does it have anything to do with watching certain human postal carriers witness the path of a cosmic paradox? No. Does it have anything to do with going over our segment time? I'm sure I don't know about all that technical bajiggery. While you figure it out, I'll just pick up where we left off. With Bridger Duc Hahn in a snowfield 10 miles away from St. Nicholas's workshop. Where? The LLV carry. Of course the LLV is there. What kind of coworker would abandon its driver in the middle of the North Pole? I asked if... Yes, sir. Dear audience, we are back for part 2 of Route 413 Jolly Bones by L.J. Longo. "10 miles to the left of number 1 St. Nicholas's Workshop, Candy Cane Lane, North Pole." On the right was redundant. First of all, right is such an arbitrary measure of space. St. Nicholas's Workshop was technically to the right of the sign, but only if you were standing in a particular part of space. Besides, there was absolutely nothing else in the vast landscape of perfect white. Nothing except that little stone cowshed and a few reindeer milling about. Tremendously huge reindeer. I mean, most people underestimate the size of reindeer and think they're the size of, say, a white-tailed deer. But the average reindeer is much larger than that, and these reindeer were much, much larger than the average reindeer. Larger is such an arbitrary measure of size. Let's do it this way. A white-tailed deer, the kind 1 in 116 Americans will hit with a car, averages 5 to 6 feet and 200 pounds. A moose, the kind 1 in 500 Canadians will hit with a car, averages 6 to 7 feet tall and over 1,000 pounds. The cars in question range from 5 to 6 feet tall and weigh over 4,000 pounds. These reindeer, native to the North Pole, average 12 feet at the shoulder and weigh about 8,000 pounds, not including antlers. Holy shit. On the LLV, which, by the way, is 7.1 feet tall with 121 cubic feet of cargo space and weighs approximately 3,400 pounds unloaded, coughed in the snow, an entire herd of reindeer flew away in formation. Holy shit! Beautiful and brawny, Bridger leaned as far as he could over the steering wheel in just his open coat and boxers, and watched the huge beast prance in the sky with slack-jawed shock. Even his slack-jawed shock is beautiful. Sir, why is the living human postal carrier not wearing any clothes? Fan service, don't interrupt. When the cargo bay door slammed open, Bridger jolted but resisted glancing back. If he had looked back, it would have been all right. The danger to his sanity had passed, and there was no sign of whatever his boss was. Postmaster is with him in Svartalheim. Abby, please. Now for Route 413 sat quivering in the tray. If he had looked, which he did not, Bridger wouldn't have been able to tell if the mail was terrified or eager, as it flickered in the breeze of the heater. But he would have known that each envelope and package had been properly sorted with love and care. Gus sort the mail for you again, and we will personally reactivate your spleen. Miss Miriam was a tiny woman, but she still had to squeeze unnaturally small to fit between the front window and the mail tray. Yet there she sat, suddenly, holding Bridger's uniform. Jesus Christ! Bridger slammed against the LLV's driver's side door, as if trying to throw himself through the metal. Then, recalling the cold void outside, he thought better. I have told you not to summon that entity by name.
Delighted to see you this morning too, boss. Tell you what, warn a guy when you're about to go all horror contortionist on him and tell me how the mail got out of order, and I'll save you the trouble of doing whatever. Why my spleen?
Miss Miriam's head twisted like an owl, making her hijab drape in very pretty ways. The creature inhabiting Miss Miriam was not used to talking to anyone, least of all a living human. Once they had processed the entirety of Bridger's remarks, they held out a bundle of human clothes, which were cleaner and substantially less wrinkled than usual.
It is too soon for you to be here, but the mail insisted. Put on your uniform and be jolly.
Jolly? Sorry, boss, have you met me? I don't really do.
Try.
Bridger slouched from the front of the cab into the cargo bay through the tiny door that was not meant for a tall man to use. He stayed hunched in the cargo bay, noticing that even his air mattress had been folded and put into its place, far smaller and neater than he had ever managed.
You will try, won't you?
Not Miriam's voice made a strange crackle. For those humans in my audience, Bridger's boss accidentally revealed their worry and excitement for their employee. If they had revealed too much more, they probably would have exploded Bridger's pretty little head and recovered their monotone.
It's not every day one of my workers gets to see a Santa Claus.
Santa Claus? Like the Santa Claus?
The Santa Claus, yes. Bring those cookies, yes. Let me steal one.
Cookies? Buttoning his shirt faster, Bridger looked where Not Miriam crouched on the mail shelf. They were pointing at the tin of cookies from his co-worker with the golden hair. Bridger wasn't usually this slow on the uptake. It was partly the cold, and partly the realization that Santa Claus was apparently real. And a good kid. But he'd never gotten any toys. Not Cole either. Or maybe he had gotten a toy, but Lakeland, his older sister, who was not a good kid, stole it. Or Meadow, his younger sister, who wasn't really good or bad. Maybe she thought it was for her. Or Mom took credit for buying it. That was probably it. Unthinking, Bridger dug out the tin of cookies his coworker had given him and extended it to his boss. Not Miriam's wide grin opened wider as they distended their jaw. They were about to eat the entire tin, and probably Bridger's hand, in one bite. You can't eat the mail. Not Miriam pouted, and their lips quivered.
It's not mail, stupid. No one delivers to Santa Claus. Santa will deliver you. Now give us a cookie.
The boss reached with both hands, and Bridger opened the tin. Santa probably gets letters delivered. Also, do you mind not being in a human shape?
This shape is to make human employee feel more at ease.
It does not have that effect, boss. The cookies were high quality. Not at all the sort you get as leftovers from the holiday season. You know, the weirdly colored ones, or the ones with raisins. The unwanted, slightly freezer-burned cookies. Were never her faults, and there were far too many to name. Girls' cookies were perfection. A crisp, butter-golden cookie with flaky texture and white chocolate and almond shivers baked into the top. This could be from a Hallmark movie. Here you go, boss. Shit, where did you go?
In here.
Something squishy sounded from the breast pocket of Bridger's crisp, clean shirt. When he opened the pocket, he saw a tiny black nothingness that hurt his eyes to look upon. It settled in amongst the lint. A tentacle of unreality flickered out and snatched the cookie in Bridger's hand. Comfy in there, boss?
Shut up. Put on your pants.
After Bridger had donned his pants, I know, I'm sorry too, and his overshoes and his coveralls, he stepped out of the LLV, cold and confident in the snow, carrying his tin of cookies, undaunted by the lonely landscape or the massive reindeer circling over his head. Christ on a cracker, it's cold. He turned to jump back into the LLV. The vehicle was gone. The idea of being abandoned to the impossible cold more startled Bridger than frightened him at first. Just as the sheer panic broke through his mind, he tightened his grip on his keys. Fingers were already going numb from the cold,
There was something on his keychain, a tiny replica of a mail truck, complete with mail trays and a tiny air mattress in the cargo bay. The headlights flashed at him. The creature in his pocket whined.
And shelter, you half-wits.
Not exactly spoiled for choices, Bridger stuffed the cookie tin into his satchel and wandered toward the stone cowshed. His coat and trousers were definitely not rated for this temperature. A howling wind snarled across the empty snow, and Bridger shoved his hands into the pocket of a thick coat. He could feel the protective layers trying to reshape itself to deal with the elements, but it was just too cold. Smoke treats had materialized in his pocket. They popped up every now and again. And Bridger looked up at the reindeer soaring in lazy circles. He slogged up to the door and pushed. No movement. He tried pulling, then pushing again, until there was no doubt about it. He was locked out in the cold. Calves and forearms tingled painfully, and when he knocked at the door, he was surprised to realize he could no longer feel his fingers. Hello? I could use some help, please. Bridger wondered, how quickly could a person freeze to death? The answer, of course, is about 20 to 30 minutes at negative 40 degrees under normal conditions. However, this was also a protective cold, a magical cold, the kind of magic that has gotten a lot fiercer in the last 100 years as human technology has begun to catch up. Factoring in the jacket, the LLV's warmth, and his other PPE, but not forgetting the slightly magical chill in his own heart. Give him about 5 minutes. Wanna bet? Oh, you and those cows!
What's wrong with you? Focus.
Oh, Postmaster tuned into our show, Abby. Hello there.
Fuck you. Skip ahead.
The creature of shadow and power hissed from Bridger Hahn's pocket. Did you say something, boss? Bridger kept knocking, one long stream of desperate pounding.
Stop knocking. They know we're out here.
Bridger stopped knocking and stood still, which was hard to do in freezing cold. The wind circled him, flailing with all the icy breath of hell.
Knock again.
Boss, if they know.
Knock a third time. Properly, they are being stupid and formal.
Bridger knocked a third time, the rattling of his muscles doing most of the knocking.
Now turn thrice with your shins.
Unquestioning, Bridger turned the wrong way.
Other way.
Questioning, Bridger shifted his tactics and turned the other way.
Now, repeat after me.
And the tiny voice in his pocket said a string of nonsense that vaguely rhymed. Bridger repeated it awkwardly, unable to form words and fighting off a deadly sleep. The phrase sounded like singing. The door opened as if the business of being a door was existentially exhausting. Well, I suppose that will have to do. Who are you and what is your business? Freezing to death.
Bridger was only faintly aware there was a person opening the door. Actually, stepping out of the wall. The tall, human-adjacent figure was the same color as a used chalkboard. He peeled himself out of the wood of the door so that only stone remained. Our hero did not notice that. Like any dying animal, Bridger was concerned only with one thing that would stop him from dying. With the rush of warm air and the roaring fire, he plowed his way past.
Rude? How dare you, sir? The elf? I think that's what the humans are calling them these days. Sounded more like an affronted child than a majestic door guard. He settled the huge red cone on his head, and his shocked expression returned to unbridled boredom. The creature in Bridger's pocket scoffed. The LLV revved from Bridger's keychain, saying some much ruder things. Both of them, and stood close to the fire. Sorry, it's a bit nippy outside. Of course it's cold. This is Svartalheim. Of course is the old name for... Is that what we're calling the North Pole these days?
Oh, cute! Bridger's tuned into the show too. His little mind can't possibly comprehend a thing I say, but still, I'm touched.
I can remove you, sir. Bridger thawed enough to glance over. Elf was taller than him, but only slightly wider than a twig. Bridger liked his chances. Still, it wasn't right for a mail carrier to be impolite, even in the off hours. So Bridger extended his hand. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's start over. Thank you for saving my life. I'm a mail carrier, and I think... The elf did not take his hand, and so Bridger refused to admit he'd been lost. His manly pride, so affronted, wouldn't tolerate. I got lost on my route, and my boss told me to come here.
Well, so much for manly pride.
To the North Pole? Listen, you roughfoot. We don't have time to escort every lost mail carrier home. You should have gotten on the Aurora Borealis if you were lost. The Aurora Borealis leads everywhere. Great. I sure will. I'll make a note of that in the route book. Bridger turned his back to the fire, since he was feeling his fingers again, but not the back of his legs. Can you give me directions to the Aurora Borealis? It's terribly simple. You ought to be able to tell just by looking, I'm sure. The elf looked out the window of the cowshed, and he could not tell just by looking. The elf coughed awkwardly. No, I cannot. We'll go to the supervisor then. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Something.
Sorry, you say what? I want to give you something.
Bridger fumbled in his satchel, finding the dog treats. Useless. Then his new lunchbox, which he was not giving to this elf. Then the tin of cookies.
Gift? For me? What could you possibly offer?
Do you like cookies? Our clerk made them. I think they're...
Sherenakakar! Oh, my favorite!
Yeah, sorry, scary crack. Almond and butter cookies. Enjoy.
The elf took a bite, and then melted, almost literally. One tiny bite, and his knees buckled, and he swooned so far that his hair swept the floor. Then he leaped into the air and clicked his heels together. Then he looked at Bridger for a long, confused moment, and said something in his strange language that only seemed to upset him again. Ooh, we can't believe it. I am so very honored to be well. Sir, this is all very exciting for me. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is... We're not going to waste time with this guy's name. It's long and elfish and has at least 4 different kinds of tree in it, so we're going to call him Chad. When he was done with the recitation of his name, Chad smiled at Bridger and waited expectantly. Then prompted, "What's your name again, sir?" Bridger faintly remembered some half-written note in the route book. Something about circumventing the wiles of Satan and his spawn, and never giving your full name to fae or kin. Call me Bridge. Everyone does. No one does. No one ever did. No matter how much he insisted, that nickname never caught on. Even the elf noticed his name on the uniform jacket at that very moment. Of course, Mr. Hahn. Please follow me, sir. And the elf pranced away giddily, which only made Bridger more nervous. He whispered into his pocket, "Yo, boss, what was in those cookies?"
I don't know. Butters, almonds, sugar. I have another one.
Yeah, whatever. And Bridger fed another cookie into his pocket. "123 Elf Road, North Pole." The elf led Bridger through the back door and into a huge barn. Row upon row of huge reindeer, all sarcastically chewing their cud, while Bridger gawked like an infant in a very homogeneous zoo. "We're exercising the Blitzens today, Mr. Bridger. Personally, my favorite breed is the Cupids. So cute." Bridger thought it was odd to call a thing as big as a Mack truck cute, but he was talking to an elf, so what did he know? Apparently, he was supposed to answer, because Chad went on, after an awkward minute, with a chagrined tone. "Of course the Blitzies are cute too, and we love all the reindeer equally. Oh look, here's one of the old model sleighs. We use it for training."
Past the behemoth deer, the sled was
disappointingly practical. It was a huge red crate, perfect for transporting slugs and large parcels without any of the storybook flourishes, except for a few carvings to indicate zone markers. Bridger sighed and the elf flinched. So he cleared his throat and tried to muster jolliness. Yeah, it's cool. Dad grinned, clicked his heels, and exploded into details about the older models and the new, and the training regime of the reindeer. I will not bore you with Chad's idiocy, although Bridger indulged him. He created a wonderful effect of knowing much more than he did by asking very specific questions about things Chad had just talked about, and then humming knowledgeably.
I went through a huge warehouse door into a huge cavern, a wide, empty white space that opened into more hallways. Judging by the smell of sugared oats and fresh dung, each hallway led to more reindeer. There was a bank of open cage elevators in the middle of the room, lit by dangling bells. Allegedly, it took 10 minutes to go down that mine shaft. The bare rock raced by in the dim light of the glowing bell, but still there was nothing below but darkness. It seemed even longer to Bridger, because that lanky son of a bitch kept looking at him, waiting for him to speak. Eventually, the weight of expectation broke even Bridger's stoic silence.
So, Chad. Yes. The elf smiled eagerly, ignoring all of the missing consonants and trills of his name. So, how long do you think the North Pole has been an annex of the USPS? The elf turned his head sharply, causing his hair to waft like a rainfall of blue-gray silk. His giddiness turned instantly into a vaguely threatening imperiousness. Archer kept his brow raised and his face neutral. The USPS? So, we joined the United Universes Postal Service officially sometime in the 1770s, but we have been operating independently of the UUPS since the 1100s. United Universes Postal Service. Peter wondered if there were different benefits in belonging to a multi-universal post service that his boss wasn't telling him about. The UUPS have a union? Good catch. You'd be surprised how many can tell you the basic history of their annex, but not what branch it belongs to.
Good trick, Bridger. The elf was all smiles and heel clicks again.
Oh, I do love a good trick question. Now you tell me, should I take you to the central office through the moral cataloging department or the karma smelting? Bridger had a feeling the elf might try to trick him back, so he took a moment to be very clever about karma smelting. Oh, very good, sir. You see, the whole operation is very orderly, Elevator suddenly dropped into a huge, well-lit cavern. Golden firelight filled the vast expanse and thousands of enormous vats of sludge. Beautiful sludge, though, like a pastel shimmer coated with a sparkling caramelizing layer. Some of the vats were burning white hot, with a lump of blue at the center. Others were a soft glowing orange all the way to the top. One of the vats nearby was mostly empty, as an enormous lump of coal sat shimmering in the shining yellow liquid. Laced across the vats was a network of catwalks, machines, and millions of elves wandering through with checklists and magic, evaluating, testing, tasting, and chanting over the melting coal. The elevator chunked to a stop. Bridger stood gawking at the processing plant. Chad handed Bridger a tall, conical hat. You have to wear a safety hat on the factory floor, sir. Bridger put the cone over his mail cap without questioning, and watched as a giant black rock spiraled overhead. It was the size and shape of the Empire State Building, and suspended by a chain of candy canes. As it was lowered into the vat, the candy canes unclasped and scampered back up the rock face to the top. Coal itself touched the molten liquid. A million diamond sparkles danced out and sprang from the vat. They rained down on the crew of elves observing below and bounced off an invisible zone around each hat. Ned pointed to the huge chunk of rock as if Bridger was looking anywhere else. That's an unusually large bit of karma reserved for Halloween. We know how that time of year can be, full of tricks and treats. We don't want it mingling with the Christmas season. So all that naughtiness just gets melted down? Oh, yeah, sir. Smelted and distilled and then redistributed. Wouldn't want to fall into that. Be real, no Christmas presents ever again, right? Yeah, because you'd be burnt alive. I mean, not what I was going for, but yeah. Hop in the sleigh, sir. This sleigh had the right shape, a graceful curve, but it was painted black and had only a hard, efficient bench inside. A donkey with a red conical cap and a sour expression stood ready to pull it. Bridger hesitated. Chad rocked on the balls of his feet anxiously. Unless you want to inspect the floor, sir. No, straight to Santa, please. Bridger climbed into the sled. Chad leaped in beside him. Literally, the twiggy fucker cleared at least 2 feet, and then he looked at Bridger with eager anticipation. Bridger looked back at him. Chad put the reins in Bridger's hands. Bridger held the leather straps and stared back absently. Donkey is one of the Dominics. Oh, I'm not certified on Dominics. Like Chickadee Chig, the Italian Christmas donkey? Or that's what he had been saying. The instant he said Chickadee Chig, donkey brayed and shot down the hill. Italian Christmas donkeys, aka the Dominics, have incredible speed and power, and the sled was extraordinarily light, even though it held an elf, a human, an LLV, and whatever the postmaster was. The donkey hardly noticed his burden and flashed along the cave wall, galloping on a thin ledge. It was going slow, an easy 60 miles an hour. Since neither the elf's giggling nor Bridger's screaming sounded like a command to speed up or fly, when the donkey ran out of ledge, it simply twisted and ran sideways on the wall. Bridger hung on for dear life as the sled threatened to dump him out. Dad had taken the time to belt himself in and remarked with a touch of admiration, "Just like Santa should be, utterly confident in his sturdiness, yeah?" Bridger didn't catch this remark because he was focusing on not falling out of the sled. A shame, really. If he'd known what the elf suspected, why the male had insisted on bringing him here, Bridger would have been overjoyed. Then it would have been easy for him to dig down to the core of actual jolliness in his soul. As it was, Bridger was terrified. Directly below the sideways sled, one of the vats bubbled in an endless molten mess. You could see the elves skimming bits off the top and into test tubes. In a different vat, the stuff was being capped into smaller barrels at floor level. Dad leaned over his lap and pointed. "Oh, look, sir, there's the sugar plum vision sauce, big shipment that was ordered up for February. Valentine's Day. Sure. Hi, Auntie." Dad said another name in Elfish that was stupid and long and had several different kinds of plants in it and was utterly pointless. "Sue is there. She's in charge of the balance between sugar and spice. Do you have time to meet her, sir?" And mostly to get out of the sled. "Why not?" The elf touched the reins and gave some command, and the donkey slowed. "Aunt Sue, outside inspection. Come tell Mr. Hahn about the sugar and spice, yeah? Then we'll go to the man in charge, sir." My friends, my audience, my dears, they did not. Chad's Aunt Sue led to her co-worker, Cheryl, and then Cheryl's son and daughter-in-law, and then Cheryl's sons and daughter-in-law's neighbors. Bridger gave cookies to all of them out of politeness, and because the boss in his pocket told him to. He had all the nuances of the operation explained to him with excruciating detail, without ever really getting a sense of what the operation was. Eventually, he found himself brought to an office. The secretary, a rabbit-looking woman with an extravagant fluff of fur and the largest feet he'd ever seen on such a small, delicate creature, took Bridger's last cookie and gestured for him to sit inside the office. "The postmaster will see you in a moment. You can go in and wait for him now. Thanks again for the cookie, sir." The postmaster's office was a lot like Margot Formica's office, only with a good deal more tinsel on the concrete. It was a barren, unused place, complete with a half-dead spider plant. And sitting alone in the room was the first time since he'd met Chad. Bridger could ask the creature in his pocket, "Boss, why do they keep calling me sir?"
Because they're ingratiating fools. Give Santa the rest of the cookies when he arrives.
There are no more cookies.
What do you mean there are no more cookies? There has to be more cookies.
A tentacle and a pair of eyes and teeth crawled out of the pocket.
Did you eat them all?
We didn't have a single one.
Was that kid in wrapping wanted it? She took two, the little bastard.
Don't blame little Hazel, whatever. The one who's been eating them all. Fear and goodwill warmed the air, and the door behind him closed with a sound like 1,000 packages being safely and gently set down, which, unfortunately, was imperceptible to Bridger Hahn. And they were my cookies. The girl I like made them for me. Nobody ever makes anything for me, and you made me give them all away. I didn't even get a single cookie. Not a single goddamn cookie. Bridger Hahn, my man, you okay? Bridger cringed at the overflow of booming goodwill. It was a shitty first impression. He'd been on the naughty list his whole life, and now he just messed up beyond all human capacity. Boss slapped him with a cookie-crusted tentacle.
Remember, Dolly, Dolly.
Well, that's another world saved, doomed, and or slightly weirder than we found it. Either way, you made it.
And when you're ready to plunge back into the abyss, we'll be here, lurking, whispering.
If you liked today's episode, tell a friend. If you hated today's episode,
You can find us on Substack, YouTube, or wherever you scream into the void about podcasts. Drop us a comment. Send us your thoughts in all caps. We love that. You're charming.
and hey, if you want to help keep these stories weird and our tea hot, you can throw some coins our way on Substack. It keeps the lights on. Literally, Lane is writing in the dark.
Paperback Radio, no ads, professional narrators, and humanish weirdos telling you strange tales week after week. After week, after week, after week.
We told you to stay in the back room, Dizzy.
Nah.
Thanks for wandering through the chaos with Paperback Radio.
See you next time.
Sharanaka. Why do I do this to myself?